Hello, and welcome to our first SJND information session. Thank you to those of you who are joining us live and to those of you who will be watching later on. My name is Gabby Lippy. I am the Director of Admission at St. Joseph Notre Dame High School and also a graduate of the SJND class of 2008. Very happy to be here and happy to be joined by the other members of our enrollment team. Mrs. Eileen Graybeal, our Director of Enrollment Management and alumni parent, and Mr. Sean Obligacion, Admission Associate and graduate of the SJND class of 2015. We are introducing this 4-part informational series to allow prospective families to connect with key members of our school community. And today our focus is on humanities at SJND, and you will be able to hear from and interact with 3 of our awesome SJND teachers. So I'd first like to introduce the principal of St. Joseph Notre Dame High School, Ms. Julie Guevara.
Thank you, Ms. Lippy, and good evening, everyone. And I'd like to offer up a pilot welcome to all of you tonight. As Ms. Lippy said, my name is Julie Guevara, and it is my privilege to serve as the St. Joseph Notre Dame High School principal. Before I introduce our student leaders and members of the Humanities Department, I'd like to take the opportunity to lead us all in prayer. At SJND, we begin the day with prayer as one community, and I invite you to settle your spirit this time and find some stillness and some quiet. And today's prayer is titled, A Prayer for Our Earth, by Pope Francis. So let us pray and hold in our hearts those who are suffering from the fires up north. May each person and animal find refuge amidst these scary times, and let us reflect on what parts of the earth do we find comfort in, and do we feel God's presence. So let us begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All-powerful God, you are present in the whole universe and in the smallest of your creatures. You embrace with your tenderness all that exists. Pour out upon us the power of your love that we may protect life and beauty. Fill us with peace that we may live as brothers and sisters, harming no one. O God of the poor, help us to rescue the abandoned and forgotten of this earth. So precious in your eyes, bring healing to our lives, that we may protect the world and not prey on it, and we may sow beauty, not pollution and destruction. Touch the hearts of those who look only for gain at the expense of the poor and the earth. Teach us to discover the worth of each thing, to be filled with awe and contemplation, to recognize that we are profoundly united with every creature as we journey towards your infinite light. We thank you for being with us each day. Encourage us, we pray, in our struggle for justice, love, and peace. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Again, thank you for taking the time to being with us tonight. We are 1 week away from completing Q1 of our school year. And I just want to share how incredibly impressed and how proud I am of our students for demonstrating, such resiliency and perseverance day after day. And how our teachers have pivoted in a way no educator would have ever imagined. The innovativeness and creativity they've used to deliver engaging and thoughtful instruction is amazing. Tonight, many of you are on your journey of exploring your high school options. Please know we are walking alongside you and are here for you as you determine such an important decision. I recommend that you take advantage of the various opportunities we have for you to learn about the SJND community as well as our programs. And I invite you to contact me directly if you have any specific questions I can assist you with. Tonight, you will hear from outstanding members of our Humanities Department, as well as from our amazing students. And at this time, I'd like to invite members of the Ambassador Leadership Team to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Alana, a sophomore at SJND. Previously, I went to St. Joseph Elementary School, and now I will turn it to Sarah.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lasanti. I'm also a sophomore here, and before joining the pilot family, I went to St. Philip Neri.
Good evening. My name is Makaya, and I'm also a proud sophomore here at SJND. And before SJND, I went to Coastline Christian Schools in Alameda.
Hi, I'm Janine. I'm also a sophomore here, and I went to Bayfront Middle School. Here's Emma.
Hi, my name is Emma Kwok. I am also a sophomore, and I previously attended Our Lady of Grace.
I'm Mateo George. I'm also a sophomore at SJND. And before this, I went to Escuela Bilingüe Internacional in Emeryville.
Awesome. Thank you, students, and thank you, Principal Guevara. We are also thrilled to have 3 SJND faculty members with us this evening. Ms. Colette Gungraffi, representing the English Language Arts Department, Mr. Ryan Rosso, representing Social Studies, and Ms. Anna Adams, representing Theology. They will be introducing themselves and speaking about their experiences as teachers and about their departments. And following their presentations, we will conduct a live Q&A. And we ask that you start thinking about questions and use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your Zoom screen to ask. And we'll make sure that we get either questions for teachers or for our students answered for you this evening. So with that, I'd like to introduce Ms. Gungraffi.
Hi, I'm Colette Gungraffi. I teach English literature to sophomores and seniors at SJND. This is my 6th year at the school. I'm also a faculty moderator for the literary magazine, as well as a couple of other clubs that kind of come and go with the wind. Right now, I am the K-pop moderator, so I'm learning a lot. So our English curriculum is focused on the acquisition of skills. So we're not necessarily trying to absorb content for content's sake, but it's about how we're able to apply it. So we're reading rich literature, we're writing, we're developing critical thinking skills, and trying to, in a lot of ways, reflect on how we can use what we're taking in the world around us. And I think that kind of brings us to also being able to adapt to the world around us. And so many of our discussions this year have been in regard to just the changing environment that we're living in and the changing times that we're in. And I think one thing that we've all had to do is learn how to be flexible in both how we are teaching and students as well, how they're learning and how they're being asked to demonstrate what they learn. Choice has always been one of the great aspects of the English curriculum. Students have choices in terms of what they read at certain moments, or choices about the different things that they're writing about, or that they choose to speak about or express themselves with. And so this year, we've been working a lot on choice of, how to demonstrate what it is that you can do and what it is that you know, when we're all working in this sort of like strange, dystopian, otherworldly situation. And so one of the things that we're doing in our department is giving kids just choice about, how much time they want to spend online. So, are they reading online books, which in other years have been very, very popular. Maybe this year they feel more like a hard volume would give them some eye rest. Similarly, when they're asked to do stuff in class, there's always a portion of the class that's online, and there's always a portion of the class where they can turn off their cameras and even stand up to do the work if they want to do it. They can take photos of work that they're doing by hand, as opposed to spending more time on the screen. And I'm, they're being asked to give ideas to us, I think, as well, is the big part of it. So English is the class of, we learn how to communicate. And this has been a great practice in really encouraging both students and teachers to keep up that communication in this time where it seems like we just can't get enough personal interaction.
Awesome, thank you. And Mr. Rosso.
We've been doing this for months and I still can't unmute myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Ryan Rosso. I'm the Social Studies Department Chair. I teach World History and AP US History. This is actually my 9th year here at St. Joe's and my 11th teaching overall. I would say in the Social Studies Department, we're really focused on developing socially conscious young adults who are excited to go out and not just participate, but participate actively and responsibly in their society, while knowing how history affects their current historical context. I'm really excited to share with you some of the things that I've done, that my fellow social studies teachers have done, and other teachers at SJND have done over the course of the past couple months that has felt like the past couple years. Specifically how we deliver our curriculum and how we assess our students. When I was thinking about this evening and what I would say, I started with the fact that I think I, along with a lot of other teachers, really took for granted the separation that I had between my work life and my home life, as some of these students can attest to as well, before COVID. In March, I was thrown into working from home with a 2-year-old running around the house in a small apartment. And we were blessed with adopting a newborn baby boy in May. I don't know why we thought adding to our family in the middle of a pandemic was a positive thing, but it's been such a blessing, but it has challenges. So in May, we were all about survival. If we can make it to tomorrow, if we can make it to the summer. Some days were easier than others. Some days I had more energy. Some days I didn't get through all of my work. And I think the thing that hit me late in the spring was, here I am not meeting all my expectations for myself. And yet I'm expecting my students to meet a criteria and not giving them a lot of leeway. And I just took a step back and I didn't think that was equitable. And so the events have really forced me to look in the mirror and reflect on how one's home life and one's home circumstances can really affect their schooling. And even though we're doing distance learning right now, I plan on continuing these policies where in person. I think they're that important. So over the summer, I spent some time developing more equitable grading policies where the grade is really what it is an authentic reflection of what a student has demonstrated and what they know. And it leaves out other factors that have so often been included. When you think of those factors, we think of late work penalties, huge tests for tons of points on a single day, where we expect the student to be at the top of their game, participation points in the grade, I firmly believe all of these measure a student's environment, their ability to be okay at home, not their ability to demonstrate knowledge. And because so many of us have different home environments, that's not equitable across the board. So some of the policies that I started implementing this year to really address this, one of them is a late and incomplete assignment form, where students hand in a late and incomplete form the day an assignment is due. In it, they articulate what sort of obstacles kept them from completing the assignment on time, what outside support they need, including myself, what I can do to support them. We set a new due date together, and we track it. And if a pattern develops, we bring the family in and the counselor in and have a conversation about that pattern. But I think it really allows for some self-reflection on the student part. The last two things is a retesting policy. Students are welcome to sit for a retest as long as they're caught up in all of their work. I think it's really equitable for students who, sometimes we show up and we just have a bad day. And I don't think anyone should have a big chunk of their grade be reflected on an hour of the semester. So I think that really encourages the process of learning. And then kind of big picture is a transition to more formative work and not counting these formative assignments for a grade. So this year I'm really transitioning to quizzes and more formative assignments. And what I mean by that are assignments that help students practice and allow me to give feedback, that they're not part of the grade, and they really allow students to focus on the learning process instead of the sit down and what type of score do I need to get process. And I've seen students come to class for a quiz, excited to take the quiz for learning's sake and not trying to get a perfect score on it. And so that really allows me to focus in on the learning and to take time to really develop more authentic assessments that are a better reflection of what a student actually knows. It comes in waves. Sometimes it's frustrating when a student doesn't hand in their work, or I feel myself wanting to revert back to old practices, but I'm always reminded this is in the best interest of the students, and I'm really proud of the work that our community has done throughout the past year.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Rosso. And now we'll hear from Ms. Adams.
Hi, I'm Anna Adams. I am the Theology Chair and Service Learning Coordinator at SJND, and this is my second year. So first, like Ryan, everybody going through distance learning, parents and students, you have my full sympathy. I have 2 kids at home, so I know what it's like to try to conduct a meeting when somewhere in the house, someone is having a meltdown, the Roomba has just come on and the dog is barking. I also understand technology challenges. There have been moments in the last 6 months where I have felt like my 80-year-old middle school substitute teacher trying to work the VCR. So I try to be understanding of my students, and I just ask for them to be understanding in return. So I want to note that in theology, we are rooted in our Catholic Christian tradition, but it's our aim to create an inclusive environment where different religious perspectives or non-religious perspectives are welcome, and we try to attend to the spirituality of everyone. We just ask students to be open to learning and engaging in respectful dialogue, which I think at this time we can all agree is sorely needed. So in a particular way, theology has both the privilege and the obligation to be really attentive to the whole person, to nurture both the intellectual and the spiritual dimensions of our students. And I think this holistic approach has become more important during the pandemic. So reflecting on it, there are 3 things I think that we are especially emphasizing in theology this year, and those are community, theological reflection, and positive change. So community. Well, forming a safe and welcoming community in our classes is really important because we often touch upon topics that aren't just abstract, they're also personal. They're questions about what we believe, how we make moral decisions, they're questions of social justice. So during these times of disconnection and isolation, as a department, we've discussed being intentional about creating opportunities for students to connect, even if it's just virtually. And that might mean something simple like beginning classes with a check-in or implementing some team building activities. To give an example, my colleague Josh Hammer has created a YouTube channel for his classes. And there he not only posts lectures, but he encourages students to like, subscribe, and yes, even troll him in the comments. They can't make fun of each other, but they can poke fun at their religion teacher. That's fine. We all need a little joy in our life. Next, this idea of theological reflection. Well, this is part of what we do. Theological reflection just means putting our own lives and stories into dialogue with tradition and scripture, and being attentive, listening to what insight emerges when we connect the two. I think this is really important when we're living through a historic situation. This pandemic, they're all trying to survive. So we've been intentional about inviting students to reflect on our circumstances and through the lens of what we are studying and our own religious and spiritual framework, whatever that might be for you. So this ranges, again, some examples, lighthearted stuff, like I invited students in my religious themes and film and lit class to give me a film pitch for a movie about life during coronavirus at any genre. And they came up with some really fabulous examples. And that it's again, it's community building, it's creative, it's processing what they're experiencing. And on the more serious side, I have students in my faith and action class. That's a social justice class where they plan a research project and community service. And some of them are choosing to research how the pandemic has disproportionately had a negative impact on the poor and the vulnerable, and looking at what the long-term effects of that are going to be. So really thinking critically about the situation. And lastly, was a positive change. I think we can all agree we're going to be changed by this experience in some way. And I've listened to my colleagues talk about even how it's prompted them to think about how might they change their teaching practices even going forward. So dovetailing with this idea of theological reflection, we're all being intentional about inviting students not to just wallow in our misery and feel sorry for ourselves, but thinking about how are we going to be different when we come out of this? And how can we respond in a positive way that helps us move forward and build a more just world and be more grateful for the good things in our community.
Thank you all very much. We are so truly blessed with all of you in our school, and I'm a parent with 2 children who went to this school, so I have hands-on experience. We're now going to go into our Q&A session. So please enter your questions. I see there's one in there. Enter your questions into the Q&A portion, and we will monitor and ask as we go through this process. So for the first question, there was a question earlier that was about, what size our school is, how big our school is. And our school is 448 students currently. The largest we would go at this point in our time is around 500 students. So the details, we'll go over a little bit of those in the end of the presentation. First question we'll direct to Mr. Rosso. Was the social studies teacher, speaking of you, speaking for the whole department, or is that how he runs his classes? So is there any information you can share about the other social studies teachers and if this is the common process?
Yeah, that's a great question. We decided as a department to focus most of our grades on summative assessments and to take that same approach with formative assessments throughout the year. For example, world history, there's actually 3 different teachers that teach world history. So the 3 of us meet on a weekly basis and we talk about how the latent and complete assignment forms are going, what the retesting is going to be like. So it's definitely something that we're doing department-wide.
Great, thank you. The next question is, they were asking if the theology teacher that was speaking was the head of the department. They loved her approach. So Anna,
I am the department chair, and thank you very much for that.
Another question was, let's see, we're getting lots of really good questions in here. What types of transportation options are available? That I can quickly answer. Right now, I wish they were available because I would love us to be back to that chapter of life, but we do have a bus. And we do currently have 2 locations for pickup and drop off. One is in San Leandro at the San Leandro BART station, and it picks up in the morning, 7-ish, 7:15. And then it has 2 drop offs in the afternoon. One that's about an hour after school and leaves school about an hour after school. And the other is like 5:45-ish. So if kids are involved in things after school, they have that option. The second one is in Oakland at the Lake Merritt BART station. And it's the same schedule. It's just one is a bus and one will probably end up more like a van program. So we will have that. It is our goal to continue to have that. And we can speak to that probably a little bit more in the end if there's more questions around that. So this is for Anna Adams. How do you make the school feel inclusive for non-Christians?
Right, that's a great question. I think we just start by, again, affirming wherever they're coming from. I think that being inclusive is actually part of our mission as Catholics, to be welcoming in that sense. So in our classes, I mean, I certainly invite students, if they come from a different religious tradition, to take what we're teaching about with the Catholic Church, our own tradition, and maybe compare it to their own, to feel free to express their own, or to other ways make the language inclusive so that people who aren't religious too can find, I think we can all find like a common ground of dialogue, because we look at it both as an academic discipline and the level of faith formation of, again, meeting students where they're at and whatever tradition they come from.
Thank you. Let's see. The next question could probably be for all three of you and maybe Colette, because it has something about writing. I hope this is the right form for the question. There's no wrong form for any questions. I'm very interested in hearing about how creativity is balanced with structure, particularly in supporting creative writing.
Yeah, so I'll talk about that. We do have a creative writing class that is offered certain years. It really depends on the teacher. I would say that we always include an aspect of creative writing throughout the year in numerous assignments. And it is very connected to craft. So for example, right now, my sophomores are writing an essay about culture and its effect on their identity. And so we spend, an amount of time studying other similar pieces of writing, noticing what those authors are doing in terms of their choice of words, the ways that they structure their sentences, noticing how the ideas are organized, what sort of other figurative language or other pieces that they're using. And then the kids are applying that to their own writing. And so as we go throughout the year, even though some of our essays will become perhaps more structured and analytical and less creative, one of the goals is to maintain, the ability to use words in such a way, or to structure our sentences in such a way that we still feel as though we're reading something engaging that really expresses the voice of the writer who's writing it. So there's always opportunities throughout the year for creative writing, and there's occasionally a class that is focused specifically on creative writing. But whenever we're teaching it academically, it's connected to craft and structure.
Thank you. I think this will be, and Anna, if you don't know this, I might know this, but about what percentage of the population is not Catholic? We are not, but looking to continue with the Catholic schools.
I don't have that exact percentage, but Eileen.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So we, on average, we run in the last few years around 59% Catholic, 39-40% non-Catholic. I can tell you personally, I'm not Catholic, and both of my children went to this school. My father-in-law was a Presbyterian minister, so it was a challenge of change, but it was awesome. But I will tell you that what my children both learned, which was the biggest gift in life, is tolerance, learning other people's beliefs, learning the value of everyone's belief, learning there's not as much difference in some of the beliefs than they might have thought. But the biggest gift in both my children would say that. One's graduated college, one's in college, but they would both say that. So I think our school broadens a knowledge base about, and also incorporates into that how we treat people in the world and what that tolerance is about. There's two questions that I think that teachers can speak to because they're individually about them. And then in the end, there's a whole program discussion I can address. But how does the school support students who have IEPs or are diagnosed with something that has a documented learning difference? How is that? I know the program, but I think from a teacher perspective, how does that engage with you in class, and how do the programs work with you?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. We have a designated counselor who works with students with individualized learning plans. And at the very beginning of the school year, the counselor meets with each teacher of every student who has that plan and goes over the plan and the accommodations to support that student in class. I think, big picture, supporting those students is really the same as supporting all students. Extra time, open for questions outside of class, just making yourself available. So although there is a specific plan that we dedicate to students, I think best teaching practices really makes it available to every student.
Yep, I think the program that we have, even in the admissions process, on the application, there is an area where you can check that you have a documented learning difference or learning report, a learning difference, and then followed up by the report. And then we go through a different process with that. You actually our students interview, our applicants interview, and you interview directly with the counselor for documented learning differences. And that teacher, as Mr. Rosso spoke to you about, orchestrates with the teachers, and then also for the families, that's a resource for them to ask questions or to understand it in more depth. If it's discovered while the student is in school, so they don't have a documented learning difference, and that's discovered at the time, or the need for discoveries at the time that they're a student, that's something, I'm so sorry, that's not my computer on stable. That's something that we end up working together as a school with the faculty and staff and the family on what would be the appropriate process. Someone mentioned in here who the moderator is, and I didn't introduce myself. I'm so sorry. My name is Eileen Graybeal. I am the Director of Enrollment Management for St. Joseph Notre Dame High School, and I was the admissions director for 6 years. I'm starting my 7th year, and I absolutely love this school. So we'll go on.
Eileen, I think we had a student who wanted to speak to that as well.
I was just going to say that. Mateo?
So I have an ILP, and one thing I found that was that like almost shocked me was how good the support is at the school. And it was one of the reasons that I actually chose to come to the school. So like the support is really, really heavy. Like we have Miss Stair, who's like amazing at her job, and she really helps support us. She even has a system, because a lot of us have some issues paying attention, is that she has these people who take notes for us in class, so we can look back on them in case we missed something, so we can look at that. And I found that really good. She's always helping us, and she'll always take time out of her day to help us out.
Great. I'm going to move to one and then go back to another one. But can some of the student ambassadors talk about how distance learning is going for them? Do we want to start? Any of the students want to speak and say how you feel about how distance learning is going? Mateo, do you want to speak about that? Or?
Sorry.
Sure. One thing that I found about like distance learning is that though it is inherently distance learning, so it's not going to be as interactive as being on campus, it's still pretty fun. Like one thing I found is, especially Mr. Rosso's class, is that he makes class really fun. So we're learning about systems of government, which can be kind of boring, but he made it really, really interesting. So we're talking about like oligarchy and aristocracy and like system of governments that are like really prominent now. And he just makes the class really fun.
So Alana, do you want to speak to how you think it's going?
Yeah, I agree with Mateo. I feel like the teachers are doing a very good job making the lessons engaging, because a lot of times you can fall into the trap of just the usual slideshow presentation and lecture for an hour and a half. But I feel like the teachers are really doing their best to stray away from that. We do a lot of debates, we do a lot of discussions, conversations, a lot of student like engagement. So it's not just always the teacher talking. And so, yeah, I think that's something they're really doing well with.
Great.
I really agree with both Alana and Mateo. And I think some of the things that have made distance learning so enjoyable for me are our schedule this semester has been really wonderful in replicating the SJND experience. I think one of the things that's very unique to our school is how much support students get from their teachers and how well we know them. And so we have periods before school for office hours to meet with our teachers, and we have periods within the school day to get support. We also have a thing called pilot pods. So we have social interaction with other students. And then we also have time for counseling and to receive that kind of emotional support that you also get at SJND. And I think that's been really important for me during this really difficult time.
Thank you, Sarah. Janine?
Actually, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
I really liked distance learning at St. Joe's. I think that we adapted really quickly. And since then, all the teachers have been finding very creative ways to keep the students engaged. And I've found that very fun throughout my classes.
Great. I think, Mikaya, you were going to say something?
Yeah, so what I'm actually going to mention that without the commute time to SJND, we have more time to like spend with our families, spend and like communicating with teachers actually. And the teachers have actually been very responsive to any emails, any chats, and very helpful in a sense where they will get on a personal like Zoom call with you to address any issues, to talk with you, to help you in any way they can. And I think that's really interesting because other schools that my friends have went to or are going to, they aren't doing that as they don't have the connection with those teachers. So that's just something I wanted to mention.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think also the teachers, they understand that distance learning is like a big change for us and also for them. So providing that extra support that we like, it's really helpful. And also that they are creating like, they're making it really interactive. So it's not just like sitting there in front of your computer, you're actually getting to interact with like your classmates as well as your teachers. So I find that very helpful for me.
Thank you, students. So the next question is, assuming COVID is not an issue, are there any service learning trips off campus that are required? Anna, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. There is a required sophomore service retreat, and that's a day-long trip to St. Anthony's in San Francisco. Seniors also are required to complete approximately 20 hours of community service as part of the Faith in Action class and their capstone projects. So in the capstone project, they're researching a social issue, and they're also working in the community for an agency that connected to that issue. There is an optional, or there has been in the past, an optional immersion trip over the summer, as well as we have a lot of kids motivated to do service in our community who have clubs and just gatherings on their own without it being a requirement. But as soon as the pandemic is over, I'm really hoping to get that summer immersion trip going again.
Great, thank you. Okay, Ms. Gengraffi will be part of this. Can you describe the ways SJND is or is not, in general, a good fit for creative kids? Creative in writing or music, art, drama, what opportunities are good fits for them?
Well, just to pick up on the last thing that you said about art and music and drama, we have an outstanding arts program. It's actually a program that I was quite shocked to discover when I first started working at the school. Students are required to take, I believe it's 2 years of arts education, and that can take the form, again, thinking about choice, that can take the form of art, music, or drama, and they can divide their time between any of those departments, including things like photography and graphic design. So I think it's actually a wonderful place for creative students. I would say certainly in my classroom and in the English classrooms, there's an understanding that not every student thinks exactly the same way. Not every student engages and is interested in exactly the same thing, which is part of the reason why we try to offer choice, both in texts when we can, but also in ways in which students can demonstrate their learning. I have a vocabulary assignment that I give to my sophomores, and some students will opt for the traditional route in which they're writing sentences exhibiting their understanding and ability to use a word. Other students will create videos or visual slideshows to demonstrate that they're able to look out into the world and see these words in operation and apply them in other ways. So I think it's a wonderful place for creative students.
I will add in some of the families and the questions that we get and we research out is part of being creative. For example, in the theater program, it's not just about the acting. There's about building props. It's about tech programs behind the scenes. It's about the entire industry about it. It's about writing a play. It's about performing a play. And that's one area. In regards to what Colette was saying in regards to art and music, we have band music. We also have choir for students. And then art has a traditional art perspective, which takes it all the way to the AP art level, where you will have a portfolio. And as she mentioned in her classes, and then also Colette with the literary magazine as well. Students have an opportunity to have an outreach of creativity. So I would say that it's very much so. One of the things I would say to parents as you're looking at all the different components about the school you want your student to go to is there is the ability in our school to do more than one thing. If you are a student who wants to be involved in musical theater or wants to be involved in the visual and performing arts, but you also want to try a sport or you also want to be part of a few clubs, there's an opportunity in that to do more than one thing. And that does become a challenge sometimes for different schools.
I think having some of our students
Right.
talk about the opportunities and activities that they're involved in would be great here as well. Emma, do you want to kick it off?
I'd love to. So along with like the things that are offered in classes, there's also a wide array of clubs that are offered, and the students are able to, they can join a pre-existing club, or they can, if there's nothing that fits their interest, they can also just start their own club with like friends or like by themselves, and then like meet other people who have the same interests through those clubs. And like it's a really great way to branch out and like find things that you maybe didn't know you liked, or like continue to engage with other people that have the same interests that you do.
Do the students want to talk about also what clubs you might be involved in, just to give some idea to the names of clubs?
I'm involved in the Asian Pacific Islander Club, the Red Cross Club, as well as We Club.
I'm an officer of the FOSO Club, which is a Philippine American student organization, I think, club. And it's really fun because we get to plan different activities such as potlucks and like dances that we do at student assemblies. And it's just really fun because all of us share Philippine culture and there are a bunch of traditions that we discuss.
Do the students want to say, Micaiah or Alana, anybody want to talk about what other clubs you're involved in?
Yeah, okay, I'll continue. So I'm currently in the Bud Branch Women's Club and the We Club. So the We Club is actually like conducted by students that want to help the community. And what we do is we actually build basically events for the school, such as last year we did the Lenten clothing drive and 2 food drives. And Sarah was actually a part of that with me. And what we did, we got the entire school to fill up most like 7 bins of food for the community. And it was really like great. And we had a great time doing it. We got spirit points. We these points basically add up for parties and prizes at the end. We all get motivated, we get like paint on our face, and it's a really great time, what the Weed Club does. And the Bud Branch for Women's, what we do is we support the Oakland Children's Hospital. It's a new club I just joined this year. However, it's conducted by young women of SJND who want to help the community in that way.
I agree. I also think one of the great things about SJND is that there's they really recognize that students are like as a complete person. So there's an opportunity to be part of lots of different clubs to address all the different interests that students might have. So I'm part of the Active Random Kindness Club, which just really works to create a community that's really like living out our Catholic and values of just being really respectful of one another and creating moments where we just acknowledge each other as human dignity. I'm part of the Youth Environmental Activists Club. I'm part of the We Service Club, which Makaya spoke about earlier. I'm also part of Prisms, which Ms. Gangrafi leads. And I just joined this year a club I'm really excited about called Paper Bridges, where we write letters to to kids in orphanages all across the world to create connection. And then I also just joined this year the American Red Cross Club.
That's awesome. We have over 30 clubs within this school, and they vary from board game club to American Red Cross, where they're doing blood drives, to acts of random kindness, to barbecue club. I mean, they're varied, and the students can create those clubs with a moderator and officers within the program. So it's a really strong program. I'm going to jump into a couple of additional questions. So one is, do we have an orchestra? Ms. Lippy, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So as freshmen, students are able to choose their visual and performing arts. So as you mentioned, they can choose musical theater, choir, art, or band. So we have a great band program, and Ms. Sokola is our band director. So we have a symphonic band and a pep band, so not a full orchestra at our school. And we also have a pep band of students who kind of perform at our spirit events. But we do have also a strings club that Ms. Sokola leads. So for any students who play string instruments as well. I don't know, are any of the students involved in band?
I don't think tonight, so no. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lippy. One of the questions that was earlier asked, I'll answer here, is how often are ILPs and 504s reviewed? Teachers, do you know that specific? I know the counselors run that program, and the counselors will work with the students on the frequency needed based on what their challenges are, but I don't know the frequency with the teachers.
I would say that the counselor would review it with the student and families anytime any new information becomes available. So they're constantly on top of it. And then usually the counselor will relay any of that updated information with us.
Perfect.
Yeah.
This is for Ms. Gangrafi. Do your English requirements meet or exceed the UC system?
We require 4 years of English, which I think is definitely meeting UC requirements, if not surpassing them. I don't know, Gabby, if you know a little bit better than I, but we definitely are up there.
Yeah, as a college preparatory high school, all of our courses are approved by the UC system, and generally our graduation requirements do exceed the UC kind of minimum requirements. But yes, for English specifically, students take it all 4 years and are able to go all the way up to AP English Literature and AP English Language if they choose to challenge themselves in that way.
Another question, are there any tutors available if a student needs extra help in a specific subject? Do you have to go outside of school for this? Thank you. So I think from the teacher's perspective, we have internal programs with our National Honor Society, which are students who are peer tutors to each other. And we have a program after school called Pilot Prep. And that's determined on attendance based on what you and your counselor work out. And so we do have, and then teachers can speak to this, but our teachers are very available to support the students, and I'll let them talk about that in a moment. But I also want to ensure that, do we also have lists of outside tutors if the need be bigger than what we can provide at that time, then we have that support program as well. But teachers, if you want to talk about your support offerings to the students.
I would say that particularly this year, our schedule is such that it really accommodates one-to-one conferencing with students multiple times a week during our flexible academic periods. So when we first went into distance learning, I had certain students who, you know, for a variety of reasons, were struggling with writing assignments, or, you know, for motivation or a combination of the two. And so we would get into a weekly routine where the student would show up in one of these academic periods, and we would just conference about their paper for 10, 15 minutes. And they were actually one of the wonderful positives that kind of came out of the whole distance learning, was discovering just the joy of working with someone one-on-one with a piece of writing in a consistent way. And I think, you know, it provided both an academic grounding and also an emotional grounding. So we're really fortunate this year, certainly, that we have these about 3 periods a week where that is the sole purpose. And usually when we're in, you know, regular face-to-face learning, we have that same period usually 2 to 3 times a week as well.
Great, thank you. Next question is, which foreign languages do we offer, which is Spanish, French, and Mandarin? And what is the required amount of years? I believe it's, I'm double checking this, but I believe it's 2 years that you have to take a foreign language. What I want to ask the teachers, and we're getting close to our time, so there's one more question here, which is for each of them. What makes teaching at SJND different or unique compared to teaching at another school, if you have? And give us your description of that. Either one, any of you can start.
Yeah, I mean, I thought of when I remember doing my new teacher orientation last year, and we're talking about the sort of the values of the school, and there were 2 words, a humble, proud, that came up. To seem paradoxical, but I really feel like, to me, that's something that's unique about this place. It's not a, you know, you're going to get a great education at any Catholic school, but this is a community that is always striving to improve in a way that's sincere and authentic. It's been my experience, not out of a sense of competition or not to be the best, but because it's the right thing to do. And compared to some other places I've been, I think that's really special. I see a lot of people who are absolutely at any stage of their career. They're here to keep improving and growing and learning. And I see students of all different sorts, the whole cross section of society, who find a place in a home.
Thank you. Mr. Rosso?
Yeah, there's a lot going through my mind. I think taking a step back, the ultimate positive would be I want to send my kids here in a heartbeat when they're old enough. I think there are just so many avenues for a student to find what their passion is. And there are so many different types of teachers where a student is guaranteed to connect with one. And you can just be really confident that when your student is here, there's no falling through the cracks, because they will find a group of people, they will find a passion that I think sparks them, and just kind of opens up that creativity that often they didn't know they had.
Great. Colette?
I think when you attend a small school, it's very hard to be anonymous. And I think that's a really good thing. You know, our students know who is in their same year. They are on teams with and involved in clubs and interests with students who are of other years. There's not really the space, and I mean this in a very good way, there's not really the space to form cliques and avoid difference. You come up against it in all of your classes. There are people who are not like you. You're making friends with people who, you know, throughout your time here, not just in your freshman year, because of the different experiences that you end up having. And I think as a result, our student body is really kind and look after each other because they know who each other are.
Can I add one more thing?
Of course.
I always love to talk about the fact that when we're back in person, that every single day our seniors walk past the kindergartners who are leaving their classroom and they're high-fiving each other. They'll be socially distanced when we get back. But seeing those interactions between our seniors and the kindergartners and just the kind of like community and camaraderie that we have on campus, that always makes my day. I think that's one of the things that makes us really unique.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the students, and thank you very much to our faculty. We appreciate you. And Principal Guevara, I'm going to turn it to Ms. Lippy.
So thank you all so much for your questions. Really appreciate it. And we just wanted to give you some reminders and notification about some upcoming events here in our last few minutes. You know, no question goes unanswered with us. So please always feel free to reach out to Eileen, myself, and Mr. Obligacion if you'd like to set up a one-on-one conversation. But we also have a wide variety of events this year to engage families. So coming up on Monday, we have a live with admission session led by our John Gunty, the head of our counseling department. So any parents who are asking about counseling, if you'd like to kind of hear directly from him, you can join us on Monday at 10 a.m. We have virtual visits. So we are doing a lot of virtual visits with 8th grade classes, but if your student's school is not one of those schools, we would love them to join us for an interactive student experience. As I mentioned in the beginning, this information session is a part of a series. So our next will take place on the 14th of October, and we'll focus on our STEM program. And then later on, we will do one specific to our visual and performing arts, and then student life. So we hope that you kind of continue coming back, and we hope to connect you with the teachers and the students who are involved in those programs. Quickly, just about our application timeline. So our application is live on our website right now. We've already had students and parents kind of getting in there and completing that. But our early bird deadline is for reduced application fees in December, and our final application deadline in January. We are going to be doing the online high school placement test on January 9th. We actually have a practice test this Saturday if students are interested in just kind of getting a sense of what that test is going to feel like. As part of our process, it's really important for us to give you as families direct contact with our faculty and staff and vice versa. So we do a family interview in January as well that allows you and your student to connect with one of our faculty and staff members for about a 20-minute conversation. Transcripts and recommendations from the students' current schools are due in February, and your online parent portal when you finish the application will guide you how to do that. And then finally in March is our admission notification. So we will be here with you, walking families step by step along the way. But please know you can always reach out to us, and we will be here to answer your questions. There's a quick question here. Will there be more practice HSPT tests later on? So this is actually our second offering. So we did one back in September, and this is our second one here coming up on the 3rd. But I know some of the other Catholic high schools are considering offering testing as well. So we at this point do not have plans to do a third one, but kind of once the schools decide, we can make sure to communicate that out as well if there are other opportunities. The practice test, there's another question here, does have a fee. It's $50. And that is because it is a proctored exam. So one of our SJND teachers will be proctoring via Zoom and small breakout sessions. And then the testing and then the results. So the results go straight from the testing company to families. So we as a school don't see it and don't share it with anyone. The HSPT opened for registration. So we actually just had a diocesan admissions directors meeting this afternoon at 2 p.m. to kind of finalize that. And so registration will be open next week. So we will make sure to communicate that to families as well, but you will be able to register next week. Awesome, and I think that's all the questions. So again, we appreciate you and thank you for joining us. And we hope to see you again soon. Take care.
Thank you.